How is it going, YouTube? Malagant here. We are going to be talking about crafting in Last Epoch, how deterministic it is, how it should be used while leveling. And this video is going to be trying to cover like most of the things that are, tips for newer players. I'm assuming if you're like very experienced in Last Epoch, there's not going to be so much information in this video for you. Apologies for that, but I'm really hoping that like there'll be something for almost everybody. That said, I'll also be explaining, at the end of the video, I'll also be explaining my approach to crafting when it comes to especially leveling. Not necessarily the late game or the advanced section of the crafting. So the item bases is the first thing that I want to talk about, which is the most important thing in this game in my opinion. It's very important for you to understand what item bases are available to you at what section of the game. The simplest thing, what is an item base? If we are just talking about like the body armor, for instance, at the early section of the game, there are certain body armors available to you. As you level up, the monsters are leveling up as well. So the loot pool expands and there are new items available to you. Therefore, there'll be new body armors available. So let's compare these two different body armors over here. And we are only going to be checking out the implicit values. What that means is that the inner stats of the item itself, even if there is like no affixes, no prefixes, no suffixes, no affixes on it. So this armor over here is called the Burial Plate, and the base is called Burial Plate, and it's offering 157 armor. You can hold Alt to see the rolls on it. It's always coming with 157 armor, and it's coming with from 31 to 47 cold resistance. In this case, it's a 41 roll. So that is the implicit, right? That is the base white item that you should be aware of. This item, I don't necessarily know what level it requires. You can definitely check that from the loot filter, and we will go discuss that soon as well. Let's compare this base now, the 157 armor with cold resistance, to this base over here, for instance. This is something called Immortal Regalia. It's another Acolyte body armor. It comes with 149 armor instead, up to 13 all resistances and up to 13 all minion resistances. This is an absolute insane of an item if you just compare the two bases over here. Definitely an upgrade, a crazy upgrade. So I would rather, when the level comes, right, when I'm capable of wearing an Immortal Regalia, I would rather wear an Immortal Regalia with the same affixes, right, the same stats that the item offers. I would rather wear an Immortal Regalia over a Burial Plate. So all I'm trying to say is try to understand what is available to you newly. What new bases are going to be, even going to be available to you. So how can you do this? By clicking Shift F, you can go into the loot filter and you can go into adding a rule, add a condition, item type, go into armor. Let's just check out body armor since we are talking about those, but you can do this for literally every single piece. You can go into body armor, you can confirm, and then come to the subtypes. Now is your decision basically. Which class are you playing? In this case, we're going to be talking about Acolyte, just to give the example, but you can do this for any other class as well. So these are the body armors that are available to me. As you saw, I have an Immortal Regalia in my bags, and I'm using a Burial Plate. Burial Plate base is level 57, so I need to kill at least a level 57 monster to be able to get this on the floor. Immortal Regalia is very high level. It's starting from level 679. So this is more of a late game item. So when you start the game, Outcast Rags are the ones that are available to you as Acolyte, and then that's gonna shape into Coven Garb, Witch Robes, and then Ribbed Cuirass. Pay attention to the Ribbed Cuirass's armor increase. This is quite hefty armor when it comes to leveling. This is pretty useful. So you might want to like go with a Ribbed Cuirass over the others when it comes to just mitigation if you're playing hardcore or something. I'm always playing hardcore in Last Epoch because I find the game very optimized, and I for hardcore, that is, I find the game is quite balanced for hardcore, and I enjoy playing hardcore when the RPG is optimized around hardcore. Simply because like it offers more content to me. When I die, I have to reroll, I have to go again, I have to check, I have to optimize a new character, I have to like come up with like a new build to go to. So there's a lot of new content for me and my stream. So that's why I'm playing hardcore for the most part. So therefore, my approach is usually on the more defensive side of things, you know, so like I care about armor, I care about resistances a lot. What about that? In Last Epoch, there's something unique. The resistances are not as crucial. They are not crazy important as in other ARPGs. You want to be maxing out every single resistances in most of the other ARPGs. In Last Epoch, you can definitely get away with, you know, especially the leveling section until the very late game. You can definitely get away with like not maxing them out. That being said, you shouldn't have zero resistance on something at any point in the game. Unfortunately, definitely not, because it's definitely reducing the damage that you take by quite a lot. But since in the early game, there isn't really like so many mods that are, you know, multiplying the damage numbers of the monsters, let's say, most of the time, tiny little bit of resistance here and there is definitely fine. A little bit of parentheses over here during the chapter 1, you want quite a bit of void resistance. The others are kind of okay. Later on into the game, you want elemental, physical, and necrotic resistance as well on top of this. But during the chapter 1, as I said, when you're like fighting most of the time purplish monsters, void resistance is pretty important. Around like 50% or something is going to carry you. The rest of the stuff are not that important, so like 20%, 30% is fine. And until, you know, around like level 30, 40-ish, you kind of want to like bump up all of your resistances, if not poison perhaps, to like 40-ish, 50-ish, and you'll be fine until monoliths, just fine, completely fine. Armor is very important in this game as well. Therefore, when you're mouse overing new bases like these, try to pay attention to the armor values as well. The armor is capable of like mitigating almost everything in the game, starting from physical at 100% value. The rest of the stuff are going to be, you know, a little bit less of a value mitigation, like 70% if I'm not mistaken. I think damage over time is not being mitigated by armor, but there isn't really that much damage over time unless you're failing at something or like getting poison stacked, etc. But this is a little bit too much information, I think, about that. So that being said, like from the bases, as you can see, and we are only looking at like body armor, you can, you know, the game is offering you too many different things. So if you're playing like a, I don't know, like a minion build, for instance, you can definitely look into Profane Regalia at like level 63. I'm just telling you to be aware of, you know, what level is offering you, you know, what. So let's do the same thing, just as an example. Let's do the same thing for like a one-hander. Assume that you're playing a, like a summoner, for instance, playing with like some pets. Look at this thing, for instance, the Oak Scepter at level 21, offering you implicit value of increased minion damage. So it would be a good thing to like start searching for Oak Scepters at level 21, and it would also be a good thing to not overcommit into crafting to a Cultist Scepter and just wait for an Oak Scepter base. So this is how important the bases are. The same thing can be said for rings, the boots, the belt. You know what I mean? Because like there's a belt that is offering like 90 armor or something out of nowhere very early on into the game. Those things are like crazy important, and try to pay attention to the bases that are dropping on the floor. Another base that I really like to use is the Gold Ring. It offers elemental resistances, and I like to craft on this a lot while leveling in the early game. The lowest level that you can use this is level 25, and around level 25, thanks to this golden ring, I usually bump up my elemental resistances very, very easily. Up until this point, I usually use the movement speed, the silver ring. So from silver, I bump up to gold just to fix my resistances most of the time. The forging potential is going to be the next thing that I want to talk before jumping into more crafting availability. Forging potential is something that is on literally every single item in the game. It comes with a value sort of random a little bit, but on white items is lower than blue. You know, blue is lower than yellow, and then purple items, the exalted items, are going to be having the most forging potential. In this case, the boot says a lot. The chest doesn't have any forging potential because I've already crafted a lot on this, I suppose, so it's kind of like broken. When the forging potential gets to 0, you cannot craft on the item anymore. You can only shatter it, which means, you know, you can only break the item and get the affixes out. It is important to understand that your item will stop crafting. It will stop offering you crafting when you reach 0 over here. Now, let's talk about, you know, what is the highest tier that you can craft on this? Like, what is the affix count? There are 2 prefixes available to you. There are going to be 2 suffixes available to you. And every single affix is going all the way up to tier 5 when you're crafting. So the highest that you can craft is going to be a T5 cold damage right on this ring. But we can obviously have like 1 more prefix of our choosing and 2 more suffixes of our choosing as long as we are lucky. And this 14 forging potential is going to stay. We'll be able to continue crafting on this. There's something very interesting in this. As I said, like for instance, gold ring is available at level 25. And every single affix in this game, like these affixes that are available to you, the affix shards, they have some sort of like a weight of levels into them. So as you craft on top of the level, on top of the item, what happens is that like these values of affixes and their weights of levels, they add up. And when they reach the base level of the item, so in this case it's level 25, the affixes' weight is going to take over and it will start increasing the required level of the item. So if you continue crafting on a golden ring, at one point it will actually start requiring higher than level 25. And you won't be able to craft on it as long as you are capable of wearing it. So a level 100 character is capable of crafting until it's, you know, either broken or 0 forging potential or like, you know, completely done, all T5s, etc. But a level 35 character will be able to continue crafting on a golden ring, for instance, until the weight, you know, of the affixes reach level 35, and then it will say, you know, you cannot craft on it anymore. The next craft actually requires level 37, and then it will stop again if it succeeds. That's pretty important to understand. Another thing that is important to understand is the potential outcomes when you're actually clicking an upgrade. There are several potential upgrades. Obviously, the regular would be, you know, getting an upgrade and then also losing a little bit of forging potential. That's the default, but you know, possible outcome, let's say. On top of this, there are good outcomes. You know, the bad outcome is losing a lot of forging potential. You can lose all the way up to like minus 18 or something. That's quite insane. But it's definitely possible, unfortunately. So if you're unlucky, you will usually break items and then stop crafting them. Another potential outcome is a good one is not using any affix shards, especially like when you're deciding to craft with an affix shard that you don't necessarily have many of. So let's look at mine. I don't have many elemental damage over time. It seems like I have only 24. So it can, you know, end up critting and not using any of the affix shards and still give me a plus up. That would be a good obviously possible outcome. Another one would be critting. There are 2 ways of critting. One of them is like critting the same tier, so a cold damage upgrading from T3 all the way to T5 with just 1 click. That is very good. Another one would be critting, but instead of upgrading the cold damage, it's upgrading another suffix or like a prefix. So cold damage, and if this was like elemental damage, it can go 1 up on the cold damage and 1 up bonus crit on the other one for free. That is a very good outcome as well. Before we start crafting, I'm going to be covering these things, which are like glyphs that are available to you to manipulate the outcome of your crafting. And then I'll cover the runes as well. Let's start from runes. Shattering runes, we already talked a little bit. It just breaks the item and tries to give you the affixes that are available. It is not guaranteed what it is going to be giving. So in this case, for instance, if you break this, it can give me 3 health shards and 1 mana shard, or it could give me just 1 of something and, you know, discard the rest. And it will definitely just make the item disappear. Another one is the rerolling the values of the affixes. So this is basically a divine from Path of Exile, if you're familiar with that. When you alt on an item like this, as you can see, the mana is capable of rolling from 9 to 15. The increased health is from 9 to 10. So if we roll with a Rune of Refinement, it's going to be changing those rolls. And it can definitely cost forging potential for sure. Rune of Removal is going to be giving me all the affixes of one affix, all the affix shards of like one affix. So I'm going to be, well, if I remove Rune of Removal this, I'm going to be getting either 1 mana shard, or I'm going to be getting 3 health shards. So if there's like a very valuable T5 on this item, I could try to Rune of Removal that and take out all the 5 shards available to me. This is a pretty important rune that I use quite a bit actually in the late game to get out those like specific level affix shards to my class. So if I'm playing like skeletons and if I find an item with like T5 skeleton power, I try to take those affixes out with a Rune of Removal. The next one is Rune of Discovery. This is something that I don't really use all that many. As you can see, it has like a lot of them, 368, even though it's like down the line. 1 tier affixes to all empty affix slots on an item has an increased chance of rolling rare affixes. This is pretty interesting actually. It's the first time that I'm reading that. So in an item like this one, for instance, we can test this out. I'm actually curious to test it out. Boom. So intelligence, cold damage, endurance, and health is going to be our T1 rolls over here. And let's look at the outcome. It actually didn't cost me any forging potential, as you can see. Glyph of Hope, preserved forging potential. So remember that. This is the glyph that I have used, and we will talk about that soon. The next one is rerolling all the implicits of the item. So the 17% elemental resistance is the implicit in this case. And if I run that rune, the Rune of Shaping, if I run it, it's going to be rolling it from 5 to 18. In this case, we should not, because 17 is a very good roll, of course. But yeah, you can definitely reroll the implicit values if you think that like you can gain more value out of your item. There is going to be Rune of Ascendance, which is changing an item into a unique one. As far as I know, the base doesn't matter, the level doesn't matter, as long as like you change an item, so a ring into an Ascended with a Rune of Ascendance is going to be, you know, hitting a unique that is available in the game, as long as it's not a boss drop, if I'm not mistaken. A boss drop cannot be Rune of Ascendance. So if you can like target farm an item from a boss, you cannot Rune of Ascendance. But if it's a random drop from the world, then you're capable of ascending it, and you can use any base as long as it's the right base for that item. So for a chest unique, you need to use any chest, and then you'll be able to ascend it. Rune of Creation is mirror from Path of Exile, so you can actually like dupe this item and create a new one. I don't necessarily know what happens to the forging potential. Reduces the forging potential of both the original and the copy to 0. So it's like finalizing the craft on both of the items, pretty much. This is the last thing that you should be doing ever. From my personal opinion, this item is very useful for very late game making legendaries, so that like if you have a good food to feed on top of your unique, this might be a little bit advanced information. You could use this on the food item, you could use it on the exalted item, or you could use this on a crazy good ring that you're going to be using and dupe it, and now you have 2 crazy good rings, which, you know, you can equip both of them. That's a very good approach as well. As a hardcore player over here, and I have several hundred hours into this game, I've only found I think, in 150 hours, I think I've only found like 4 Rune of Creations, and I didn't really use any so far. So they're pretty hard to find, definitely. They're pretty rare, but they're not as rare as a mirror in Path of Exile, nowhere near. Let's talk about the glyphs a little bit. The Glyph of Hope and Glyph of Chaos, these two are incredibly useful throughout leveling and game. They're insane. They're absolutely insane, and they're pretty common to find, but it's very easy for you to, you know, run out of them, guys. And in this game, the crafting is so well done that you're going to be using the crafting at any section of the game, and it's gonna feel really good. It's very, very useful. So, like, my suggestion is don't be afraid to use these two, because they're not that rare whatsoever, and they're very useful. And you know, try not to leave them on the floor. Try to loot them for sure. Try to, you know, maximize the amount of things that you like kill on the map when it comes to the stuff that you should be killing, and then, you know, pick up the Glyph of Hopes and Glyph of Chaoses, because in my experience they have been absolutely detrimental when it comes to like especially leveling a character. So what do they do? The Glyph of Hope is very simple. It basically gives you 25% chance, as we have just done, to not reduce the forging potential when you craft. So it gives you another crit chance. The Glyph of Chaos is very interesting. It randomly upgrades the tier of the affix that you do not like into the next tier, but it gives you something random. So in this case, in this ring, I don't like this endurance. I'm gonna upgrade it to T2. If I use Glyph of Chaos while I'm doing this, it's going to be giving me something else other than endurance. It's not going to be giving me health, obviously, since like health is already there, but it will be giving me something else than endurance, which is something that I want in this case. I don't really like endurance, right? I would like to have some sort of like a resistance. Elemental resistance is fine, void, maybe necrotic, yada yada, but all of those are okay. And when I'm in a scenario like, I can use several different things instead of just one specific affix, then Glyph of Chaos is pretty useful, because more often you're gonna end up having something like this. It is important for you to understand, like, you can see the list of available things at this point before Glyph of Chaosing to like kind of see what could roll, right? So if we click on right over here, this endurance shard right over here, we click it, and then since this is a suffix slot, right, let's click on suffixes. So this list right over here is going to be what is available, right? It's a suffix on this ring. This list right over here. So we can, when we chaos this, right, when we chaos upgrade this, we can have cold resistance, dodge rating, elemental resistance, fire resistance, etc. Like this entire list is capable of coming. And to be fair, there are lots of stuff that I'm kind of interested in. I'm interested in physical res, crit avoidance, void res, poison res, necrotic res. I dislike these. Elemental res is good. Dodge rate I dislike. Cold resistance I dislike. So I have more things that are looking kind of, interesting than the others. So I'm going to click this and let's see what's going to happen. I've gotten -2 forging potential, so we're down to 11 now. Not too bad in my opinion. And I've gotten fire resistance. Unfortunately, fire resistance is pretty bad to have here, because in my opinion, why have fire resistance where you can have elemental resistance or necrotic or void, right? So I would like to roll this one more time, because otherwise I don't think I'm going to be using this item. Let's roll it one more time with a chaos. Another -2, and this time is block effectiveness and block chance. It is not terrible if you're running a shield, and it is definitely not terrible whatsoever if you have like high block chance. Definitely. What you do in an item, now this is a good point to talk about Rune of Despair, the Glyph of Despair, I should say. Sorry. This is a very, very interesting thing that you should always try to keep in mind. It's an incredibly rare glyph, but you can end up like using it quite a bit. So there's like Glyph of Despair is capable of sealing one of the affixes of your choosing with a chance, basically. And while you're upgrading, it will still upgrade, right? It will still upgrade it if it fails, and it will consume the Glyph of Despair. It fails, so this becomes block chance T4. But if it manages to succeed, all right, it has a chance to succeed. If it manages to succeed here, it's going to take this T3 block chance into a sealed location, and it will let me put a new affix on top of this item. So it's a very, very interesting and rare, incredibly useful glyph right over here. There's one thing that you should understand about this Glyph of Despair is that sealing an affix is, not only RNG, but your chances are being lower and lower as it upgrades also. So sealing a T1 is very easy. It will most likely hit every time. Sealing a T2, not so much. Maybe it's a 50-50. I'm not so aware of the percentages. Sealing a T3 is quite difficult, and T4 even more so. And sealing a T5 is not possible because you cannot upgrade more than T5. You need to be able to upgrade something to be able to use the seal with it. The seal is sometimes not consumed if the potential crits, and sometimes, as I said, it's gonna succeed also, which will end up sealing that affix and give you a new suffix of prefix slot open, which is, making a 5 affixed crafted item, which is very good. But this item right over here definitely is not worth it to use a Glyph of Despair now whatsoever. But why did I, talk about Glyph of Despair on a block chance and effectiveness? Because block chance and effectiveness is such a valuable uh, fix, let's say, even at T3, because when you're sealing something, you don't want to like chance to seal a T4 that is just very low. You can still attempt it, but very low chance. But you'll probably hit a T2 or T3, and block chance is one of those fixes that is like not too bad at T2 and T3 because it's giving you chance to block. It's pretty good at T2. Let's just put it this way: T2 block chance at 2%, pretty good. T2 elemental resistance, 7% elemental resistance. I mean, it's okay. It's whatever. Like, your character will be fine from other resources. You'll be okay to fix your elemental resistance there. You don't really need that sealed stat, but this could make a big difference. That's all I'm saying. The last glyph that we're going to talk about is going to be the Order, which is something that I don't really use all that often either. As far as I understand how this works is that it tries to maintain the range while upgrading it. So if it's like on the high end, it will try to like give you an upgrade that's on the high end as well, I think. But as I said, I've almost never used it, so I'm not really sure on this one so much. Let's read it for the sake. Modifies the outcome of a craft when upgrading an affix. Prevents the roll of an affix within its range, changing when it is upgraded. Maybe we can try and like understand this. I'm so lost. 10 health. So this is exactly the middle roll. 5 to 15 rolled 10. We upgrade this. Yeah, it's multiplied it. It's gonna give 33 the next time. Upgrade to 33. It's giving you the exact roll that you want. It's showing you, like, it's not leaving it to RNG anymore. You see, this is a very interesting glyph actually. Off the top of my head, I cannot really come up with like something that you must use this on. But it is 100% deterministic at that point. Like, if you want something to not roll bad, you can try to like select Glyph of Order and see what it is going to be offering you at the worst case, right? It's very, very interesting. So we have talked about the glyphs and the runes. I know it was probably a little bit confusing. It's just that, like, especially as a new player, please just pay attention to Glyph of Hope, right? Which was again giving you a chance to not hurt your item, giving you a chance to not lower your forging potential. And always keep in mind, Glyph of Chaos. You don't like one of the affixes, but you like the item itself. Okay, try to upgrade that affix with a Glyph of Chaos and try to get something that's useful. Most of the time, the suffix side is a little bit better to do this because there's some, other resistances available that you can hit. Or health values. So suffix is a little bit easier to make an item with Glyph of Chaos than the prefixes, because if you're fire damage, it will keep on rolling lightning damage, physical damage, minion damage, mana regeneration. You get what I'm trying to say. But the suffixes with the Chaos, you can obviously get something that's useful for literally almost everybody. That'd be much easier to do with a Glyph of Chaos. So keep those in mind. And from the runes, the most important is at the early game, probably Rune of Shattering. Try to get out the items, like instead of selling the item or throwing the item, keep in mind that you can shatter the item to keep the affixes, affix shards to yourself if you like the affixes on the item as well. We are going to be talking about what is it that you need. Now, this question is very, very important. From level 1 to level 10. My personal tip and guide to you is do not try to solve the entire puzzle for your character from the beginning. At level 5 or at level 10, while you're trying to, figure out what is it that I need, try not to think about level 70. That is so much down in the line. I cannot do that. I have hundreds of hours, thousands of hours in ARPGs. I cannot do that. I don't think you should try to do it either. Try to think about what is the next 10 levels. So what I mean by that is that, like, what am I doing right now, right? Like, I'm level 10, I'm like casting a fireball. Okay, how does fireball scale? I mouse over that, there are going to be tags on it, right? So in this case, summon Wraith. It says scaling tags, minion, intelligence. The minion tags are physical, melee, and area. So I can have minion physical damage to increase this, minion melee to increase this, or to scale the spell, I can have minion damage that is going to be helping me as well. That is how I scale this, right? So what is it that I need? I need minion damage. I need intelligence, right? And on top of that, I need some survival. So it is very important for you to try to know what is it that you need so that you can answer your crafting questions for yourself. That is incredibly important. The next question that comes down is what is it that you need on the specific item, which is a interesting approach. So for instance, it is important to understand what is available on gloves for you, right? So you click the plus over here. You can check what is available on the prefixes like this, and then for the suffixes like this, trying to understand what is it that I need from gloves. The same thing can be said for weapons. You can buy a weapon from one of the NPCs, right? Put this item over here. What is it that I need over here, right? We can. I was saying I'm a minion guy, so let's type minion. So I was like minion physical. So this is good for me, right? Like what else can I use? I can use minion spell, minion fire, right? This is any affix. So from the any affixes, I have these. One prefix, minion fire. Sorry, this is not even minion. This is melee fire. And then minion fizz and minion spell. I don't even know why this is showing, actually. Just type minion, I guess it's going to go away. For some reason, mini shows on the spell. There we go. So it's kind of important that, like, you know what is it that you would like to have on that certain item in the upcoming levels. Right? So that like you know what you're searching for and you know what you're going to be crafting on that item. And as I said, to answer that question, don't think too far ahead. Don't try to confuse yourself. Like at that moment, right? What are you killing the monsters with? Is it fireball or is it like an elemental attack? Is it a poison attack? Is it a physical attack? Okay, let's boost the physical. And for that, you put your weapon in here. You write physical here, right? And you check out like the physical damage increments that you can have. So you don't need the, if you're attacking with it, you don't need the minion one. You need the melee physical and then physical damage prefixes. Or if you're an attack speed guy, you could perhaps like combine the melee physical with the attack speed as well, right? You could check out like attack speed. That's a prefix as well. So stuff like this, try to understand what is, you know, what is it that you need on that specific item that you're going to be trying to take? That's very, very important so that you can make a decision for yourself to like craft that item on it as well. And towards the mid-game section, towards the late-game section, you can make something else of like viewing the materials that you have collected from your inventory. You can click right over here. So instead of like putting an item to your crafting and then checking what is available on it, you can check it out globally about like the, you know, affix shards that you have, and you can see what is it that is like supporting your classes. So for instance, I'm like minion again on this character, like I'm a minion guy, right? So we can check out like what sort of minion tags are available to me, what sort of minion shards are available to me for me to craft. And let's say that like I like something a lot, okay? I like the minion physical damage a lot, for instance. I mouse over it, and then it's going to be on the right-hand side. It's going to show me what these things are available of, like rolling on. So in this case, it says, can be applied to one-hander scepters, two-hander staff, or bow. So if I want to roll minion physical damage, these are the items that are capable of rolling them on. So this goes for everything, guys, okay? Like literally everything. So you can, for instance, come over here. It says summon wraith, right? Towards the mid game or late game, you're gonna want pluses to your skills, right? So you can come over here and write wraith over here, right? Look at this one, level summon wraith. You mouse over it. It says only in body armor you could have this. So in the mid game to late game, if I really want this, I'm gonna need, and this is a prefix, I'm gonna need my body armor to roll a prefix of summon wraith. There's no other way around it. But this is more of like an advanced late game tip. But try to understand what you would like to you know, yeah, what you would like to value for your character. And while, you know, finding this, you don't really want to like go through this entire list. What you need to be doing is basically just mouse overing the spell that you want to scale, and you usually want to be focusing on like either one wave of stuff like minion fire, or you want to be focusing on one spell alone, just like in most of the RPGs. Like in this case it was Summon Wraith for me on this character. Then you come over here and type the tags of Summon Wraith, so it would be, you know, fire spell, minion spell, you know, minion, I don't know, those tags, so you can like check around what is available to that and where they are rolling, basically. In the last part of my leveling, crafting guide, this long and too much information crafting guide, I hope you're still with me. I'm going to be talking about like my approach when it comes to leveling and my approach to crafting. So what I do is basically like I search the items that I would like to have in slots by basically like adding the rule and searching for those bases that are going to be like fixing my problems. Like for armor, I put like the good armor bases that are available to me and find it from my like loot filter. The same thing can be said for like, you know, anything. A weapon that is going to be available to me, I put it over there, I don't miss it. So in this case, let's, you know, talk about like Gold Ring once again, or like the Immortal Regalia right over here, right? You put it over here, like how do I craft this? Like, well, what is my approach over here, right? Let's just assume that like I'm kind of fine with mana, let's assume. Let's put Vitality, for instance, on top of this. Right, I'm going to be using Glyph of Hope all the time because our forging potential is very low. Hopefully, it's not going to be too bad. This is -7, so we were kind of unlucky. Not too bad, actually. Still, there's a little bit of potential over here. Let's put armor percentage. I really like the armor percentage in the late game in this game. This broke the item, unfortunately, so now we cannot craft on it anymore. You have the option to shatter it if you like the affixes, but in my case, I have a lot of affix shards of these specific values, so these are fine. Let's try to craft maybe this ring. Let's assume that this ring is for like a cold spellcaster. It is like a cold elemental caster. Let's go like full offense. It's either like spell damage or elemental damage. It's either one that you could roll. You could try to understand what are the rolls of like. Is it? I wonder if there's like any way of trying to understand which one would be like a higher roll, like elemental damage or spell damage, without seeing them. That would be kind of insane in this, actually. Let's just go for the elemental damage this time around with a Glyph of Hope. And this one actually ends up critting. As you can see, instead of T1, we got T2 elemental damage. So now from this ring, we have like 15 elemental resistance, cold damage, and elemental damage. Let's put some, I suppose spell damage might have been a little bit better. Like 10% on a T2 sounds a little bit low. So maybe spell damage was the better choice there for like a spell cold caster. For the suffixes, let's click suffixes right over here. So see what is available to me. Let's put like health, maybe. Ah, look at this. Glyph of Hope reserved the forging potential. So we're still sitting on 14. This item is getting better. Most of the time you will hear people say like this is a 7 item, so this is like T4 plus T2, which is 6 plus T1, so it's like T7 right now. And for the last slot, I am going to be putting one of the resistances that I would like to have. Let's put necrotic resistance here. -1, this is still decent, definitely. So my approach would be first making an item like this, the base, instead of like upgrading the cold, and hoping that like at this point we're still here, because just because of the possible outcomes, if you think about it, it is possible for you to, you know, crit and upgrade something else, so that like, you know, you're going hand to hand kind of, and at the same time the item itself is much more valuable, coming with like 4 affixes instead of like 2 affixes. You know, you wouldn't like to use just cold damage and elemental damage, which is like T4 and T5, and the entire suffixes are empty, you don't want to use something like that. So most of the time, my approach would be making, you know, an item that is like 4 affixes first, and then upgrading from there by their value in my mind. So what is the value of these things in my mind? Like, I'm guessing health is going to be quite easy to upgrade here with a Glyph of Hope, hopefully. -4, this is still fine. Let's go into necrotic resistance, get that to T2 as well. -8, it's almost broken at this point. We're pretty unlucky there. I am still going to approach from the necrotic resistance because I think there's a big jump from T2 to T3 necrotic resistance. Hopefully we'll crit there. That is actually finalizing the item. So this is for a level 32. Pay attention how it actually like upgraded the required level of the item as well, because our affixes are more valuable than the base item now. The affixes are total, making more levels than level 25. So the base item was requiring level 25, but we've upgraded the affixes all the way to 32. So if I was a level 25 character, I wouldn't have been able to upgrade this much. But since I'm playing on a level 100 right now, I was able to continue until the forging potential was gone. Completely gone. This is still not the worst item there is. Definitely not. 100% not. It's a decent item, offering you some health, some resistances, a little bit of cold damage. If you're a cold character that is leveling around like, you know, level 30-ish, you could definitely use this item. So this is usually my approach when it comes to that. Another thing that I can tell you is how I approach while leveling is that, like, I try to understand what is the bad item that I'm wearing, right? Let's say, oh, my relic is not really looking good while I'm while I'm leveling. What I do is I Shift F, I go into the rules, right? And I go to item type. I go into relic from the accessories. And then I check out, like in this case, the Acolyte that I'm playing. So I check out, like, what are the relics that are available to me? So let's assume I'm level like 35 or something. But this is like curse damage, fire resistance. I don't care about that. I would maybe much rather have like the level 0 increased spell damage, you know? Or I'm like level 50, or I'm level 45, let's say. I'm playing a minion build. And I'm like, oh man, there's, you know, minion damage and minion movement speed and minion health available to me at level 51. So I click this, I confirm it, and then I go to visibility, recolor, I make it red, for instance, I make it orange, something that is going to be, you know, easily noticeable. And then I add this to my loot filter. That way I will be able to, you know, see these specific bases that I want to get, and then I find that item. Let's assume that that is, you know, these gloves are the ones that I wanted to find. They're not even shown in my list, but yeah. So I find them, and then I, you know, start crafting on them the way that I would like to craft on them. And that way it is a very, very easy upgrade for me. So I do this for every single slot. I say, what is like my worst item? What's the easiest upgrade that I can get? I add that into my, you know, loot filter. I check the bases that are available in that specific piece, and then, or slot, I should say. And then, you know, from there, I craft on top of it, you know, using Glyph of Hope. And if I dislike an affix that is already on that item, I try to, like, you know, chaos it and try to get lucky. Definitely. So this was a very, very long video. I wish it was possible for me to make like a, you know, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe even like a 10 minutes crafting guide for this game. But there's quite a bit to talk to, even though like most of the information that I have given can be considered to be pretty basic and, you know, common knowledge. I kind of hope that like this video is going to be kind of useful for like maybe perhaps for beginner players, or like people that are just jumping into Last Epoch and they would like to get the maximum out of their items on the floor. And this was my take on it. Thank you very much for watching. If you've watched so far, I cover lots of ARPGs. Diablo 4 and Last Epoch is usually my mains in the upcoming days, months, maybe years even. Hopefully, hope to see you around the channel. Take care.